And with me, as always on a Monday, glad he's here for the first hour. It's my fellow talk presenter and social and political commentator, Russell Quirk. Welcome, Russell.
Good evening, mate.
Let's go straight in. We're going to come up with some other migrant stories later in the show, particularly at 8 o'clock, where we're going to bring you the story, as I just said, of what locals are calling the secret migrant village, but the local council in Cardiff insists is not for migrants. Nevertheless, they've spent millions of pounds establishing this strange-looking sort of community, really, of these single-storey white modular prefab units, very cutting edge, all full of the mod cons, very nice looking places. Most of them are empty. They say they're for homeless people, that a lot of people who are working are still homeless. They're for them. Well, why aren't they in there? Whoever is in there, the people we've spoken to didn't speak English. The small handful of people who are in there. And up and down the brand new roads that connect these rows and rows of prefabs, are parked very nice, modern, sometimes brand new cars, you know, BMWs, things like that. So what is going on the outskirts of Cardiff? And why, if these units are for homeless people, why have they got hundreds of migrants jammed into a nearby four-star hotel at great expense to us? Why don't they put migrants in there, into these new homes? That would save us the hotel bills, wouldn't it? I mean, are taxpayers being paid twice, having to pay twice? Once for this new, these homeless homes. They're also being offered to refugees, as long as they're refugees, according to the council, who are able to work. In other words, people who are here legally, not waiting for their asylum to be processed. So they say it's not for asylum seekers while they wait, it's for people who are here legally and can work. That includes refugees. So we're trying to find out what the hell's going on. But in the meantime, let's go back to another annoying aspect, Russell, of the migrant crisis. We're going to talk about the reasons that more and more asylum seekers, illegal migrants, are being allowed to stay in this country for. First of all, there is a guy who went to jail. He went to jail for...
Ironically, for a benefits scam.
Yeah, for a benefits scam. He did 2 years, and he came out. Should have been deported, but his deportation was blocked. We allowed him to stay. His name is Olutobi Ogunbawu. He did a 3-year jail term, but was allowed to stay after a judge ruled his deportation would be unduly harsh and a breach of his human rights because his wife wanted to undergo IVF in Britain.
Yeah, now, of course, in order to get off the hook here, clever, liberal, annoying lefty lawyers, the like employed by Mr. Ogunbawu here, they can just make up whatever they want.
Paid for by us, by the way. We'll be paying for this guy's lawyers.
Oh, well, the legal aid bill for, for the asylum process, let alone criminality outside of it, he runs into tens of millions of pounds of taxpayer cash every year, of course. Wow. So, yeah, so we yet again come across this problem, which is effectively because we are so pinned to the ECHR. So not so much the European Court, but the European Convention on Human Rights, which we signed up to thanks to Tony Blair. 1998, the Human Rights Act was enshrined in British law, which encompassed the European Convention on Human Rights into British law. It would not take much, Kev, to unhook that. For us to have our own Bill of Rights, and you and I have discussed this before. Actually, I think we talked about this on Clash a couple of weeks ago. The fact that Britain invented human rights, you know, the Magna Carta and, its Bill of Rights in the 16th century and so on and so on. The notion that Britain needs a European diktat on rights with which to make sure that we treat people correctly is absolutely nonsense. But of course what we have here, regardless of what the regulations and the ECHR and the Human Rights Act say, is this propensity now for these elitist, Islington-dwelling liberal lawyers, people like Keir Starmer, funnily enough, and Emily Thornberry and so on, that spend their entire existence, Sadiq Khan, of course, he was another one, their entire existence trying to get people off the hook on the basis that we must make sure that we are fairer and nicer to the perpetrator of crimes rather than thinking about the victims, the people that are mugged, the people that are run over, the people that are glassed, the people that are raped and so on. Now, the only way out of this, and of course we have just had this with the Conservative Party election, this big debate about the ECHR, which I'm afraid Kemi Badenoch, as the new leader of the Conservative Party, was very, very clear that she didn't want to immediately say that the Conservatives would leave the ECHR. Reform, on the other hand, obviously been very categoric that they will. We can keep talking about this. This will continue to happen. This crass, incorrect and warped interpretation of the law while you allow these idiotic liberal judges to let people like this off the hook. By the way, 25% of people that come here from foreign shores that offend always re-offend.
Yeah, and since 2018, the percentage of people who've arrived here illegally that we have successfully deported in this country since 2018, you're probably talking about tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands. The percentage, the total percentage we've deported is 3%. 97% of illegals who arrived here illegally are still here.
Yeah.
Well, because we never, ever get rid of them. And the real problem is yes, we should leave the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. But in the end, I worry it might not make much difference. The problem we have are left-leaning, Guardian-reading judges who interpret the law in a very sort of touchy-feely, be-kind, left-wing kind of a way. And as such, apart from this guy, we have been allowed to stay recently a Jamaican rapist who cannot be removed from this country. Apparently, well, this is the reason, because he claims he is bisexual. Despite only appearing to have dated women. But he says he's bisexual. Apparently, this is a reason that he must be allowed to stay. I mean, he raped women, but he's bisexual. So our courts decide that that is a reason to allow him to stay here and not be deported back to his home country of Jamaica.
Because he might be persecuted in his home country.
Yeah, so basically, here's a convicted rapist who's to say whether or not he won't do it again, so they release him out into our streets, endangering British women. Isn't that fantastic? Also, a county lines drug dealer from Jamaica with 23 convictions. These are recent cases, who dodged deportation because of his ECHR right to a family life. If they've got a wife and kids, their right to a family life supersedes, usually in this country, the fact they're rapists, armed robbers, vicious, violent people. If they've got a wife and kids, that trumps everything else. They're allowed to stay because of their right to a family life. I say, of course, you've got a right to a family life. Just have that family life in another country. You came here, you broke our laws, sod off. Yeah,
the other two swerves, of course, which are now quite famous, is that if you come from a Muslim country, you can just declare that you're gay, and of course if you were to go back, you would be stoned to death in some of those countries, particularly those that perpetrate Sharia law. And the other one, of course, is the old favourite, which is to declare that all of a sudden you're a Christian. So you convert from being a Muslim to being a Christian, which of course means you can't go back because, again, you'd be persecuted. Does anyone ever get the feeling that these people are laughing at us, Kevin?
Look, if you're an immigration lawyer, I mean, you're in the money. And as I say, the joke of these people, they come here, right, the illegals, they arrive here illegally. If they get tracked, if they get caught, it's like, oh, you've arrived here illegally. Right, we're going to put you in a 4-star hotel. How'd you like that? We're going to give you 45 quid a week. We're going to give you free food. We're going to give you free dental treatment, free doctor's treatment, free accommodation for as long as you like, and the icing on the cake, we, the British taxpayer, will pay for your lawyers as they fight the case for you to stay. Often ludicrously successfully, thanks to the ECHR and Guardian reading judges. That, folks, is our migrant crisis in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And when you then contrast that against, 2,000 veterans on the streets, homeless, 1.2 million people on the housing waiting list living in inappropriate bed and breakfast accommodation, the average man or woman in Britain doesn't get dentistry on the NHS. We all have to wait, several months for a GP appointment, several years to be treated in the NHS. However, if you come off a boat from Calais to Dover, you now get private medical doctors coming into your hotel complex on a weekly basis to look after you, and free dentistry. Now,
you don't have to wait for 2 years to get your dental appointment. If you're a migrant, you get your dental appointment right away. It's free, as Russell says. You also get, many of them getting this kind of private medical treatment, and we're sort of paying for that. They're certainly getting a very prompt service on the NHS, unlike the rest of us. It's ludicrous. I mean, not only do they come here with no right to live here legally, they end up getting a better deal than those of us who were born here.
Born here and that are paid into the system.
And who are here legally.
And when do we hear, and of course they'll never come on to shows like this as we've rehearsed in the past, but when do we ever hear the mainstream media talking like we are, but in front of a Labour front bench spokesman to say, look, can we just try and understand this? Make this make sense, Mr. Cabinet Minister, whoever you are. How on earth, in any universe, can it be correct, equitable and morally right that people that rock up here illegally with no ID get all of these trinkets, all of these benefits, literal benefits, and yet you're about to take all of this money away from pensioners, farmers, businesses and so on? It's almost like the government hate us, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Well, I do think we have a government, we have a Prime Minister who doesn't like Britain. I don't think many of his cabinet crew, his feeble front benchers, I don't think they like Britain very much. Hence, they pay lip service to wanting to solve the migrant crisis, but look at what they've done since July the 4th, July the 5th, when they came into power. They've made it demonstrably much, much, much worse. And if you look at some of the things they've done, you can only conclude that they actually don't want to solve this. They like all these people coming here. But as we'll discuss soon, we'll discuss next, and at 8 o'clock with Isabel Oakeshott, I mean, this is getting ridiculous.
But Kev, can I just make the point as well? In the budget, so the budget that was only 3 or 4 weeks ago, October the 30th, there is a narrative within that that predicts what the population growth in Britain is going to be. So this is the Labour government's own words. They have contained in their own budget, so they can't blame the Tories for this. This is forward-looking to the end of 2029, the end of Parliament. Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves confirmed that population in Britain will grow by 2.1 million people by the end of 2029, largely through immigration. They are absolutely 100% telling us what they intend to do, but at the same time trying to say, although of course they won't put a number on it, trying to say that they want to reduce migration. Yeah, they have no intention, and that budget narrative absolutely confirms and proves it.
Yeah, but it is probably a lot worse than that. I mean, if you think last couple of years they've let in 1.75 million legally, quite a few more illegally, and they say, we're supposed to, officially we've got just about 70 million people in this country, which in itself is just an enormous number, too many for these small islands. Everybody knows that. This country, this isn't a matter of racism or not liking foreigners. This is about knowing when a place is full.
Yeah.
This place is full. So we've got 70 million or so people living here now. They reckon there could well be 10 million undocumented living here as well. So there might already be 80 million, then 3 million more. Who knows? I mean, it is just out of control.
But in the private sector, if you were faced with this problem, what you would do as the boss, the board of that business, is to say, OK, in terms of the political implications, social implications, we've seen what happens culturally in terms of the failure of multiculturalism, the effects economically in that, most migrants don't seem to be contributing to Britain, and the fact that schools, the NHS and so on are crumbling under the pressure of these increasing numbers. What we would do in the private sector is to say, OK, we're going to have an amnesty. We're going to put our foot on the ball. We're not going to have any incoming migration to this country for 12 months. We're going to sort ourselves out, reset, and then decide what to do. That actually wouldn't be that difficult to do, because then it's a kind of all or nothing thing. You say, right, no more inward migration, legal or illegal. It's not beyond the realms of common sense to do that, is it?
If this government wanted to do it, they would do something like this, but I don't think they want to stop it. You're quite right. I mean, this is Reform's policy, which is that they have they're against the green net zero, but they have a policy they call migrants net zero. No, don't let anybody else in. Certainly for the next year, I would suggest the foreseeable future. As you quite rightly say, this is about our infrastructure. We can't cope with this. Transport, hospitals, schools, you name it. We cannot cope. We are falling apart at the seams because we have generations of politicians now, government after government, have just somehow decided, here's what we'll do. We'll let millions of people live in this country, millions of new people. We are fit to burst. Something's got to give. It really, really does. I think it is giving. I think we're going to experience some serious social difficulties very soon because of this madness, this migrant madness. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we come back after this break, Russell, because the Home Office is admitting that only half of its asylum decisions, and mostly, by the way, they decide to let people stay, are what they call satisfactory. They make such a mess of it that about 50%, just under 50% of all asylum granting decisions turn out to be wrong, turn out to be bureaucratically wrongly registered, and in come the lawyers, and we have an unprecedented number of appeals now clogging up our asylum system as these lawyers try to get their clients to stay. So more and more of a mess.